Welcome back to the Advisor's Guide to Estate Planning podcast. We're so happy to have you. Hey, Matt, how are you?
I am great. It is a beautiful spring day here in the Pacific Northwest. And I think my snowboarding season has officially come to an end. So I'm excited for green grass and to put the snowboard away and start the next season here.
Yeah. Speaking of spring, next time we do this podcast, I think I'm actually going to be in the Sunshine State. I'm going to be in Florida. So I
Right.
can definitely relate to sunshine, but maybe a little bit more than you're experiencing.
Yes, exactly. We get used to the clouds up here. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm really excited. Today we have one of the most successful estate planning advisors within the Encore platform joining us. And so it's going to be an incredibly helpful conversation for advisors, really that are early in their estate planning as a service option. And so they're going to hear from one of the best today. So Ariel, why don't you introduce Tushar?
Absolutely. Tushar Kumar is one of the founding advisors at Twin Peaks Wealth Advisors in Northern California, whose mission is to provide financial confidence by delivering customized financial advice designed to give clients the ability to pursue their goals. Tushar was an early adopter of prioritizing estate planning completion for his clients, and his firm has done nearly 150 estate plans in partnership with Encore. Fun fact, Tushar launched his firm business with his business partner at Twin Peaks, his twin brother, Vishal, who brings an additional context to the name Twin Peaks Wealth Advisors. Welcome, Tushar. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you guys for having me, and love everything that Encore does, and just appreciate you guys taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, we like to start off these podcasts with a little bit of an icebreaker, just make you feel really comfortable. And in, the light of estate planning, you mentioned you have two kids earlier to us off screen. So, one of the big questions is when you're doing the estate planning is which kid, if you're going to, would you disinherit and why?
That sounds like an easy icebreaker.
Easy icebreaker. We like to make you feel comfortable here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really depends on how my older one is behaving.
The older ones, they're the problematic ones.
I told Ariel, never ask me that. I have three teenagers, and right now that question would just be too easy to answer. And so I didn't want to be asked that one.
Yeah.
But that's great. Well, like we said, you were, kind of early in your adoption here, with the Encore team. And can you maybe share? We'd love to hear the background there. What you really saw within adding an estate planning solution, and that was now 3 or 4 years ago, and kind of what immediately triggered for you when you saw what we do and how you wanted to implement this. What was it? And kind of tell us a little bit of how you've implemented estate planning overall in your practice within that context.
Yeah, for the clientele that I serve, I think a very basic revocable living trust is what I'd say, 85 to 90% of my clients need. There's probably, 10 to 15% that need more complex estate planning. But even for those that just need a very basic estate plan, it was like pulling teeth to get them to actually go visit with an estate attorney and get their documents drafted. Many of them would start that process but not finish it. You guys have heard this a million times, I'm sure, which is obviously why you're doing what you're doing. And then many times for those who had, actually, had their trust drafted, they would stop and never finish funding the trust. And so when you guys first reached out to me about, what it is that you offer, a light bulb just went off, because for the better part of, I think, 11 years of my career, I was constantly referring that business to someone else, and not being able to own that process. And more often than not, it didn't get to the finish line. And I wanted to have greater control over what I thought was a very basic process. And so the light bulb for me went off, and I think I got my brother on the phone a few minutes after talking to
Yep.
Mike, said, hey, we need to do this. And I believe in our first year, I think we did like 54 plans or something, just getting very basic trust set up.
Were
So
those mostly clients you had already had that you knew had been putting it off, or was that out of the gate also new clients?
it was mostly clients that we had. We had already been in business for over a decade, and we went back to our clients and said, hey, this is something that we now do. We noticed that you don't have this set up. Do you want to talk to us about it? And for the most part, people said, yeah, it would be great. I don't want to go and, find someone else to take this to. And if you can just man this process and save me some time, that would be fantastic.
That's what's interesting. So that's really cool if you'd share that. What do you think the difference is when the client said, "Oh, you can help me," versus going to the stranger that you or that they didn't know, wasn't a stranger to you, I'm sure the attorneys who you referred them to. What do you think the difference for the client experience is when you say, "I can help you," and they go, "Oh, okay." What do you think's going on there?
I think it's a combination of familiarity and trust that helps accelerate that. And for most people, it's really not a question of cost or desire to get it done. It's
Mm,
just about making the time to do it and having someone who can hold you accountable. And financial advisors are very good at holding people accountable. So,
Mhm.
um, for the majority of my clients, it was a slam dunk saying, "Hey, I already trust this guy. I know they do good work, and if I don't have to go and do this on my own and make phone calls and go into someone else's office, why wouldn't I do this with Tushar?"
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually brings up a good point. You've worked with them for a while. How do you introduce the new fee, the bottom line is, and how do you charge currently? Are you incorporating this in AUM or is this fee based?
It's fee based. We do it on a flat fee basis. We charge $6,000 for an estate plan, and there's some incremental costs if people have multiple deed transfers or business assignments and stuff that needs to happen. But we've generally done it on a flat fee basis. And I'll simply introduce it to clients as, hey, this is a service and this is what it costs. We haven't really bundled it in as a part of our AUM fee because it's more of a standalone service, but I can see how that bundling could work for some advisors.
Mm-hmm.
Is that and for you, I think we'll maybe mention for our other advisors who might be listening from Iowa that $6,000 may seem expensive, but comparatively, where you are, maybe share what that difference is if they worked with an estate planning attorney in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I see the pricing in the Bay Area range from 3,000 to 8,000, depending on the firm that you're with and the
Hmm.
complexity of the plan. And previously, we had charged less than what we do now. Over time, we've gradually raised our fees as we're able to deliver a more complete estate plan. And
Mm,
the way we determined our pricing was a how many hours does it take me to get the plan in force, and then one kind of differentiator for us is that because we're the financial advisors, we can also help them with the funding of the trust, right? Because we control the
Mm-hmm.
accounts. So
yep,
we'll say, okay, in
yep,
addition to doing the trust, we're going to help you retitle accounts, put
yep.
your trust as a beneficiary on the accounts where it can't be retitled. We'll obviously help you with the deed transfers as well, which Encore takes to the finish line. So it's a more of an end-to-end service. One thing that's also kind of unique about our pricing is that it is an all-inclusive pricing, meaning it covers a mobile notary, which typically will cost, $400 or $500 to send someone out to do
Okay,
the
gotcha.
collection. They'll do so the client will basically sit at home. We send a mobile notary out as well as witnesses, using a service, which I think now you guys also have that through
Yeah,
Encore,
yeah.
but they do all of the notarization, the scanning, the emailing, and from the client's perspective, it's just the one flat fee that they see.
Yeah. It's white glove
So
service at its finest.
yeah, talk to us a little bit about, as you guys even in year one were able to do 50 estate plans, you must have gotten good with your team setting up the workflow, the steps of the process. Maybe share with everybody a little bit of how you said, okay, we're going to do this, but we obviously need our processes built for this new capability. Maybe share how you thought about that, what you've built there behind the scenes that made it easy to pull off that many estate plans.
Yeah, there's a couple of email templates that we built that really helped us scale the offering from start to finish. But I would actually turn this back to you guys and say, hey, I think you guys have done a great job of
Mm,
um, putting in all the right things in the questionnaire to make it so that there's a lot less work required before or afterwards.
mm,
So, but to, I guess, more specifically answer your question, one thing that I do prior to the estate planning meeting with the client is I send them an email saying, hey, these are the things I'm going to be asking you about, like beneficiaries, successor trustees, guardians, etc. You don't have to have all of the answers when you come to meet with me, but just think about it and I can kind of guide you through what other
Mm.
people typically do in these scenarios and help you make a decision. So they get that pre-meeting email. Once the estate plan is done, I always do a walkthrough of the documents with them live before we do any notarization, just in case they've had a change of heart, or maybe they catch a spelling error, or they decide they want to add a beneficiary. We always do that walkthrough at the end. And then finally, right after I received their signed and notarized documents, they receive another email template that gives them a list of things that they need to do to bring their trust to life, or basically fully fund that. So we used to do that manually for each and every single client. Now we just have one email that says, hey, you need to retitle these accounts, check on these insurance policies, so on and so forth. So that's really helped us scale it, but it's now lightweight enough that one advisor can do it on their own. In the past, it was me and one of my admins that I needed to kind of see it all the way to the finish line, but it's really not that much of a heavy lift compared to any other task that an advisor might do day to day.
What
would
about,
you say, real
sorry.
quick, the time you actually spend with a single client, kind of your effort in altogether? Obviously, your admin's helping with that.
Good question. So for the questionnaire part of it, that the fastest questionnaire I've ever gotten through is about 11 minutes. I timed it and I talked to Mike about it
That's so cool.
afterwards. More often than
Wow.
not, it's about I'd say 45-minute walkthrough. Some people with more complex family dynamics can be a little bit long. I'd say average of 45 minutes on the questionnaire. The walkthrough of the documents is about 15 to 20 minutes, assuming no edits are needed. And then there's the notary appointment, which is, about 30 minutes to an hour.
What about your the follow-up meetings? You mentioned everything that goes into the initial meeting. What do you do to prepare or keep that plan up to date?
Once a year, any client that has done their estate plan with us, they get an email from us saying, hey, we recommend reviewing your estate plan annually. If you'd like to set up a time to relook at any of your beneficiaries, et cetera, here's a link to schedule a time. And it's as simple as that. It's just once a year, check an email and they can opt in or opt out. It's very easy for them to schedule a meeting. I try not to send an updated copy of the estate plan over that email. I just ask that they talk to me about that directly, but they do have a copy of those documents digitally after the notarization, so they can refer back to it on their own.
So tell us a little bit about you've shared some of this before, just the overall benefit to your practice. And so obviously the biggest one we already know, most of your clients, I'm sure now, have an estate plan where they didn't have one before. And so you've got that covered. But beyond that, and also maybe with prospects who you've been talking about, having the estate plan solution, obviously you've driven some revenue into your practice, but just the overall benefit, probably even affecting your AUM, the business as a whole. Maybe share your perspective.
Yeah, I think it certainly makes for a stickier client because they have more product lines with us. They have another reason to engage with us each year. It's hard for me to kind of quantify the value of that, but I will say in 2023, two of the prospects that decided to go with us and hire us did. Well, I went with you because you also do the trust part of it, and that's something I've been meaning to do. And for one of my clients, fortunately, he had a heart condition where it was very important for him to get this done soon. And he said that, he's like, I was probably going to work with you guys anyway on the wealth management side, but this really accelerated it because I needed to get this done. So, and I think for a lot of people, it's nice that they can go to one person for everything. And now we're at the point where we've been doing this for a few years, and we've done, I think, a handful of amendments with you guys for people who need to change their guardianship or their trustees. And I'd say for any advisors listening to this, that piece in itself is such a value add, because being able to stay with someone as their estate planning needs evolves just makes you a lot more important to that client. And it's your job to make sure that their estate plan is up to date, right? The last thing you want is for someone to have a beneficiary in their trust that probably shouldn't be in there. And we see that all the time for people who aren't looking at their estate plan regularly.
Yeah, and it's such a broken process to currently recognize. More advisors are doing better about reviewing existing estate plans, but when they uncover that piece that's out of date, send them off to an attorney, maybe that did the document originally, but that's not going to be cheap. And then also or find a new attorney and start all over, versus once it's an Encore, and we have some things coming that's going to enable that on documents we didn't even do. We're going to make it super easy to update. And so huge component in fixing what's broken. It sounds like you've directly brought that in. Do you feel like overall the net benefit is something that's just been meaningful to the business overall,
Yeah, I like
to
to
your
think
clients?
about it as it's a value added service that lets the client feel like you're really looking at the full picture. It's not just
Mm,
their insurance or their investments. It's also the estate piece of it. And I think in the past, people kind of said they did estate planning, but it was really just the financial part of it. Now you can actually be
mhm,
involved on the trust side, and who knows your clients better than you do, right? Chances are their attorney doesn't know them better. Their accountant probably doesn't know them better. The financial advisor is usually the person that knows their client the best. And so having the advisor involved with the estate planning side, I think makes complete and perfect sense. And this should have probably happened decades ago.
And so that brings up, in saying that specifically, some of the questions we get from advisors is, well, I don't want to practice law. And so can you talk to that education versus legal advice component, and maybe how you set expectations for clients on your role in facilitating versus not giving them direct advice? Can you maybe speak to that and how you manage that?
Yeah, I always position it as like, look, I'm not an attorney. We have this firm Encore. They're the ones that are actually going to draft the documents, and my job is really to just to help you more clearly understand what your estate planning goals are, and then put them down on paper. Someone else is going to do the actual legal like document drafting, but I make that very clear. It's like, look, I'm not practicing law here,
Mhm.
and um, I think honestly, I rarely get too much of a pushback on that. I think there was one instance that I can remember where I had to explain to someone exactly who Encore is and how it all works. But for the most part, they're okay with having someone that we trust, that we subcontract the document drafting
Mhm.
to.
What would you say to an advisor? Because this is probably what I hear the most is I'm not an attorney. I'm terrified. I don't want to, get caught practicing law. What would you say to a new advisor who's never done estate planning before to to satisfy those fears, especially in terms of using Encore?
Yeah, well, two things. One is I would have that person do a walkthrough with someone on your team. That's the first, Mike took me through that when I first onboarded with you guys, and it was like, hey, let me just show you how easy it is. And now I know on the Encore portal you have all these little info buttons where people can click
Mhm.
on and you can get the legal definitions of things, which I think is really helpful. But doing a one-on-one walkthrough with someone on the Encore team, I think will really alleviate and kind of give people that peace of mind. And then secondly, just doing your own plan. The first plan I did through Encore was my own, and I could see it from start to
There you go.
finish. I
Yeah.
could then go and actually fund my trust and see, okay, wow, this trust does exist. It worked. It's here. And so do the walkthrough, and you guys have an incredible support team, and you're very patient as you onboard new advisors. And I hope that never changes, even as you guys grow and scale. But for me, that was tremendously helpful, is just knowing that there's someone on your side of the table who really knows what they're doing and can convey these rather complex topics to someone who doesn't have a legal background.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Was
think
that something you, oh, go ahead.
I was saying, I think you guys also do a great job with you have those summaries, descriptions of what each document is, and everyone gets that at the beginning of their estate plan. So that is also just very helpful, and it puts all of the legal stuff in very plain language for people to understand what they're getting.
Yeah, what would you say for you? Because obviously you relied more heavily on our team, I'm sure, in your first couple of plans. How many plans was that for you, and what was your experience from taking it to where you pretty much probably have 95% of what would come up in a client conversation? Early, you relied on our team a lot, I'm sure, more. Tell me
Yeah.
about maybe your growth from, okay, I'm starting to figure this out, and into being super comfortable.
So for us, it was fairly quick because I only do the very simple plans through you guys. I would say maybe the
Hmm.
first half dozen I worked,
Hmm.
kind of closely with Mike on just to get
Hmm.
clarifying questions. And now I'll only come back to you guys or your support team if there's something they've just never seen before.
Mhm.
So the ramp was very quick. It was faster than I thought it would have been.
So one of the most impressive things about what you've done is just you've built this machine in terms of a workflow. You made it really fluid, and enabled you to do so many plans. I think that's one big fear of advisors is, man, I have so many clients. How do I tackle this? Could you share a little bit about your internal workflows?
Yeah, so there's two
Real
ways
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious too on that, if how you did that with you had 50 clients. Did you just launch it to everybody? Also, maybe how you thought about that within a big client base, how you drew that up. So yeah, sorry.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So there's two ways that we bring it up. For the existing clients, the way we did it initially was we just called and emailed the people that we thought it would be relevant for and say, hey, we do this now and let's set up a time. And I think that first month I was so excited about it that I just made probably 200 phone calls
Oh,
and
really? You just went for it.
I was like, I mean, I knew that it was going to fly off the shelf, and so I made those calls. Now we bring it to our new prospects. We just educate them about this as we're educating them about all of the services that we offer, and say, okay, by the way, we also do your estate planning. What's interesting about that is we have had some prospects come to us and actually proceed with just the estate planning, and maybe they've
Mm.
not been quite ready yet for the wealth management side. Maybe they don't have enough AUM, but they say, look, I like this guy, I trust him, I'll at least do this, and then come back to him in a year or two when I'm ready for the wealth management piece. But it allows them to be in our firm's ecosystem and gives us a reason to
Mhm.
call them once a year and keep the relationship going.
Interesting. So, so doing it for prospects that recognize I have a need today, and you
Yeah.
can help me with that. Have you've seen obviously some of those folks who have converted, maybe talk to how you explain that relationship if they come on with deciding to do AUM, if you charge differently for that, or if you did the estate plan up front. But it sounds like you're convinced it's a great prospecting kind of initial engagement, and maybe speak to what you learn with that prospect on the estate planning conversation that's valuable for the possibility of bringing them on with wealth management. If they're somebody you don't know now, maybe speak to what you learned and how that experience has gone doing this with prospects.
Yeah, and to be fair, this is maybe just a handful of plans, but the
Hmm.
things that you learn about that prospect is their overall family dynamics and structure, who their loved ones are. These are things you'll have to know on the wealth management
Hmm.
side as well. You'll have a general idea of where their assets are. Maybe you don't have the exact balance on certain accounts and whatnot. Now, I will caveat this and say I can totally see a world where there are some advisors who only want to do the estate planning service if they're a client on the wealth
Hmm.
management side, and I respect
Yeah.
that. But for us, the standalone plans have also been a decent way to just get in the door with people and have a reason to stay in touch with people that we would otherwise like to work with, down the line when they're ready. But yeah, I think it really helps the wealth management side because you get so much insight and you'll know very quickly, even by helping someone with their estate plan, whether they're ultimately going to be a fit for you on the wealth management side as well.
That's really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could share with us a client story, maybe one that would be helpful for advisors to hear. It could be a really great success story or a just bomb, but it's something where you really feel it'd be important for other advisors to hear.
Well, I'll take you back to the story of my client who had a heart condition because this is a young client in his 30s, and he had a heart transplant and basically needed to get his affairs in order just in case things didn't work out in the surgery.
Mm.
And being able to know that, hey, I can help this client take control of that myself and get this done versus having to refer him to someone else and then hope that he gets there and hope that the documents get done in time, was incredibly valuable. And I remember I had to escalate that case with you guys and say, hey, I need this done in like 48 hours or something, and you guys did it. You guys put it at the top of the list. So that's the one that immediately comes to mind. But I mean, like you said, Ariel, we've done 150 plans. There's been other cases, like I had a client who was closing on a house and they wanted to take title in the name of the trust, and I emailed to Mike, and that I think it was 24 hours was your turnaround on that, which I'm not advertising to the advisors. I'm sure that's not what you want to know. But when in the past. but for the most part, even the 5 to 10 day, turnaround that you guys have is incredible. But the fact that you guys will make these exceptions when a deal is live or something is important to the client to me is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and Tushar, you advisors who do a lot of plans, our team knows, maybe, we'll get this done. We're always happy to help out. And so, but they make exceptions all the time to the rules. So I'm not afraid to say that. I won't make any promises around that, but those are our opportunities to shine when we can step up and help in those ways. So that's awesome. Love hearing that. We're getting there, Ariel, to kind of our time frame. Do you want to ask kind of our final question?
Yeah. So, well, before we do, actually, Tushar, I wanted to hear if there's anything else that we're missing that you would like to share with the listeners to this podcast.
Yeah, if you're hesitant to get started with the full-blown estate plan, I would at least check out Encore for the estate plan summaries. Those are incredibly valuable if you already have clients who have done their estate plan, but perhaps you just need to look at it again. And I think just about every advisor listening to this has that client who says, hey, would you look at my trust? And, having that summary is a great way to quickly figure out what's actually happening in all of the fine print in that trust. So check out that estate plan summary. I think it's an incredibly value add, whether you have the client pay for that or even if you pay for that yourself, just to get some clarity. I think that's a worthwhile exercise. So, and I expect us to do a lot more of that because my clients are starting to get older. My prospects are starting to get older. Many of them already have their trust in place. And I think I'll probably be bringing some of that summary business to you guys soon.
Well, real quick, and one of the things we're going to be bringing to you is the ability to look at all your previous Encore plans and have the summary with it. So we're excited to soon deliver that to you to make that even easier. I'll go ahead and ask the final question.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
And so this is just one, again, financial services overall that we're always curious to hear from advisors. So what do you think is the most important change coming in the next 5 to 10 years in financial services? And how are you thinking about that for your firm?
That's a good question. The biggest change. I feel like the easy answer right now is AI because
it is.
That's just everywhere. And I think let me actually go with that. I think that AI, the same way that the internet affected all businesses, including the brick and mortar, barber shop, I think AI will have some touch on just about everything.
Yep.
And I think in financial services, the one thing that differentiates any provider from another is really the relationship and the human element. But I think that can really be put on steroids with the help of AI. Now, we use AI in our business already internally to help respond to clients more quickly. We're not quite doing like the chat bots and things like that. It's not quite appropriate for our business model yet, at least. But we use it to draft email responses to people. And I think we'll soon be using it to also help with quicker, like things like newsletters and content that's relevant to our target market. But to be honest, I still think it's fairly early for any financial advisor to truly know what that looks like because it's moving so quickly, and I think it will continue to move quickly over the next 1 to 3 years.
Yeah, amazing.
That's great. You're right in the heart of Silicon Valley, and so that's one we definitely in your world and who your clients are. So yeah, that's a great thought and consideration. So yeah, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing. I know a lot of advisors will benefit from the path you've taken and hearing from you today. So thank you for being willing to be transparent and share that and serve the other advisors that are prioritizing estate planning.
Yeah, I appreciate your time and everything you guys do for us and our clients. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you, Tushar. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this time's Advisor's Guide to Estate Planning podcast. We'll talk to you next time.